What happens now? I murmured, my voice cracking, barely a whisper against the roar of the city that never sleeps. My knuckles were white, clenched tight around the cold metal railing of the fire escape. Below, the yellow cabs blurred into streaks of light, a dizzying vortex of urban chaos mirroring the turmoil in my stomach. Across from me, leaning against the brick wall, his silhouette stark against the neon glow of a Times Square billboard, Ethan finally turned. A flicker of a smile, faint and fleeting, touched the corner of his mouth, but it didn't reach his eyes, which remained shadowed and unreadable. "Beats me," he confessed, his voice a low rumble that barely carried over the city's din. "Beats you." The disbelief hung in the air, sharp and accusatory. Ethan was supposed to have the answers. He was the rock, the steady anchor in the unpredictable currents of my life. To hear him admit to being lost, adrift, felt like the rug being ripped out from under me, leaving me dangling precariously over the urban abyss. "Yeah, beats me," he repeated, pushing himself off the wall and stepping closer. The city lights cast long, distorted shadows that danced around us, making the fire escape feel like a precarious stage suspended above the concrete jungle. But I do know one thing. My breath hitched in my throat, my heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat echoing the city's relentless rhythm. "What's that?" I managed to choke out, the question a fragile plea in the vastness of the night. He closed the space between us, his presence suddenly overwhelming, both comforting and terrifying. The scent of rain-dampened concrete and something uniquely, unmistakably Ethan filled my senses. "I want to figure it out with you, Wao," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, a confidential murmur just for me, cutting through the city's noise and settling deep within my core. The weight of his words hit me like a physical force, a sudden impact that stole my breath. It was heavy, yes, a significant burden, but not crushing. It was the weight of shared responsibility, of mutual vulnerability. For the first time in a long, lonely stretch, the frantic, spiraling anxiety that had become my constant companion began to ease. Just a fraction, but enough to make a difference. The tangled knots of fear and uncertainty loosened, thread by thread. Maybe, just maybe. A tiny ember of hope flickered in the darkness, a fragile spark against the overwhelming night. Maybe the future, this terrifying, looming abyss, didn't have to be a solitary freefall. Maybe, with him, it could be something else entirely. Something shared. Something manageable. Less terrifying. Dare I even hope, something exciting? Later that night, back in my cramped walk-up in the East Village, the city's relentless pulse still vibrating through the thin walls, I couldn't sleep. But it wasn't the usual restless, anxiety-fueled insomnia that had become my unwelcome bedfellow. This was different. This was a strange, unsettling alertness, a nervous anticipation thrumming beneath the surface of my skin, a quiet storm brewing inside me. The road ahead was still shrouded in a dense, impenetrable fog. The questions remained unanswered, insistent, demanding attention. Boundaries, invisible but palpable, still loomed, threatening to trip us up at any moment. But for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I didn't feel like I was navigating this treacherous labyrinth alone. There was another presence beside me, a shadow in the periphery, a silent promise of shared journey, of mutual support. It wasn't a guarantee of easy answers, not a pinky swear on a smooth, predictable path. It was something deeper, rawer, more authentic. It was a shared willingness to plunge into the unknown, together, and in the heart of a city that never paused, under a sky choked with light pollution, that felt like a lifeline. It felt like everything. It felt dangerous. The following days were a tightrope walk of heightened senses and fragile optimism. We moved through the city's chaotic ballet, through crowded subway cars and bustling avenues, a new current of tension humming beneath the surface of our usual banter. Every stolen glance, every accidental brush of hands felt charged with unspoken questions, heavy with the weight of that rooftop confession hanging between us, shimmering like heat haze on a summer street. We were pioneers in uncharted territory, explorers charting a map with no compass, no landmarks. The stakes felt impossibly high, the potential for a catastrophic misstep always lurking, a dark shadow at the edge of our vision. But there was also a dangerous thrill, a magnetic pull to the uncertainty. It was like teetering on the edge of a skyscraper, the wind whipping around you, a terrifying and exhilarating dance with gravity. One sweltering evening, escaping the suffocating humidity of the city streets, we found ourselves in the cool, dimly lit sanctuary of a jazz club in Greenwich Village. The smoky air, thick with the scent of bourbon and anticipation, vibrated with the soulful wail of a saxophone. We sat at a small table in the back, the music washing over us, a soundtrack to the unspoken conversation swirling between us. The saxophone player, a grizzled man with eyes that had seen too much and a voice that could break your heart, launched into a bluesy solo, each note a raw nerve exposed. The music mirrored the raw vulnerability that was blossoming between Ethan and me, the unspoken questions that hung heavy in the air. Finally, during a lull in the music, the silence pressing in on us, I broke. "Ethan," I said, my voice barely audible above the murmur of the crowd. He turned to me, his eyes dark pools reflecting the dim club lights, unreadable yet intensely focused. "Chloe," he responded, my name a question, an invitation, a plea. This figuring it out thing," I began, the words rushing out in a torrent, a dam finally breaking. "What does it even mean? Are we just spinning our wheels, waiting for a sign, for lightning to strike?" He leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his gaze locking onto mine. "Spinning our wheels? No. Waiting? Maybe. But not passively, Chloe. Actively. We're actively waiting. We're actively figuring it out while the world keeps turning." "But how?" The frustration clawed at my throat, threatening to choke me. "How do you actively figure out something when you're completely blindfolded, when you have no clue what the it even is?" He smiled then, a slow, genuine smile that chased away the shadows in his eyes, a sunrise breaking through a stormy night. "By talking," he said, his voice calm, grounding, "by being brutally honest, by being brave enough to say the things that we're terrified to admit, even to ourselves. Brave enough to say the things that scare us." The words resonated deep within me, striking a raw, exposed nerve. Fear. That was the undercurrent, the hidden engine driving all my anxieties, all my hesitations. Fear of the unknown stretching endlessly before us. Fear of stumbling and falling. Fear of shattering the fragile hope that had just begun to bloom. "What scares you, Ethan?" I asked. The question a fragile offering, a hesitant step into the unknown. The smoky air seemed to thicken, the music fading into a muted hum as we held our breath, suspended in that moment of raw vulnerability. He didn't answer immediately. He looked away for a moment, his gaze drifting towards the stage, towards the soulful saxophone player lost in his music. Then he looked back at me, his eyes clear, direct, unwavering. "Losing this," he said, his voice low, husky, intense. "Losing you in the middle of all this beautiful, terrifying chaos." The confession hung in the air, a fragile, precious thing, suspended between us like a delicate hummingbird. Losing me. He was afraid of losing me. The thought resonated with an unexpected force, a powerful counterpoint to the fear that had been constricting my chest, threatening to suffocate me. "Me too," I admitted, the words escaping my lips in a rush of honesty, raw and unfiltered. "I'm terrified of losing this too, whatever this even is." A silence fell between us, but it was different now. It wasn't the heavy, suffocating silence of unspoken questions and hidden anxieties. It was a lighter silence charged with shared vulnerability, with the fragile, nascent beginnings of understanding, of acceptance. The jazz music swelled again, filling the void, a bittersweet melody weaving its way around our unspoken emotions. He reached across the table then, his hand finding mine in the dim light, his fingers intertwined with mine, a simple yet profound gesture, sending a jolt of warmth through me, chasing away the lingering chill of fear and uncertainty. His hand was strong, calloused, a solid anchor in the swirling currents of my emotions. We sat there for a long moment, hands clasped, the jazz music washing over us, the smoky air swirling around us, the silence speaking volumes, a language only we could understand. The fear hadn't vanished entirely. It was still there, lurking in the shadows, but it had receded, pushed back by something stronger, a shared vulnerability, a mutual honesty, a fragile but fiercely growing hope, a spark of something real in the artificial glow of the city night. As we left the club and stepped back out into the humid New York night, the weight on my shoulders felt noticeably lighter. The future was still a blurry landscape shrouded in mist, the road ahead still winding and unpredictable. But for the first time in a long, long time, I felt a genuine flicker of optimism, a tentative smile playing on my lips. Maybe, just maybe, figuring it out together wouldn't be such a terrifying ordeal after all. Maybe it could even be an adventure. A wild, unpredictable, exhilarating New York adventure. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of exploration and retreat, of vulnerability and guardedness. We talked. as he had suggested, about everything and nothing, about our fears and our dreams, about the city that both exhilarated and exhausted us. We explored hidden corners of New York, from secret gardens tucked away in brownstone blocks to underground art galleries pulsating with raw energy, each new discovery a shared step forward, a tentative exploration of this uncharted territory blooming between us, fragile yet tenacious, like a wildflower pushing through concrete. There were moments of awkwardness, of miscommunication, of the ever-present fear threatening to resurface, to engulf us in a wave of doubt and anxiety. But there were also moments of unexpected laughter echoing through crowded bars, of shared glances across bustling restaurants that spoke volumes without uttering a word, of a connection deepening with each shared experience, each vulnerable revelation. We were learning each other's rhythms, peeling back the layers of carefully constructed facades, revealing the messy, imperfect, and ultimately beautiful vulnerabilities beneath. We were finding strength not in certainty, but in the shared uncertainty itself. One blustery afternoon, escaping the relentless wind whipping through the canyons of skyscrapers, we sought refuge in the hushed grandeur of the New York Public Library. The cavernous reading room, with its soaring ceilings and rows upon rows of books stretching into infinity, felt like a sanctuary, a timeless oasis of calm in the frenetic energy of the city outside. We wandered through the stacks, the scent of aged paper and leather a comforting aroma, the silence broken only by the soft rustle of turning pages. He found me in the poetry section, his eyes alight with a quiet enthusiasm, a worn copy of E. E. Cummings in his hands. "He always makes me think of New York," he murmured, holding up the book. "So fragmented, so unconventional, so full of hidden beauty in the chaos." I smiled, leaning against a bookshelf lined with leather-bound volumes. "That's the perfect description of this city, and maybe us." He opened the book, his fingers gently tracing the faded ink on the page. "Listen to this," he said, and began to read, his voice low and resonant, filling the hushed space of the library with the unconventional rhythm of Cummings's words. "I carry your heart with me. I carry it in my heart. I am never without it. Anywhere I go, you go, my dear, and whatever is done by only me is your doing, my darling. I fear no fate, for you are my fate, my sweet. I want no world, for beautiful, you are my world, my true. And it's you are whatever a moon has always meant, and whatever a sun will always sing is you." His voice wove through the quiet library, bringing Cummings' words to life, painting a vivid, abstract portrait of love and connection in the heart of the city, in the heart of the unknown. When he finished reading, a comfortable silence settled between us again, a silence filled with unspoken emotions, with the quiet understanding that bloomed in shared vulnerability. "I carry your heart with me," I repeated softly, the words echoing in my mind, resonating with a surprising depth. "That's beautiful, Ethan." He looked at me, his eyes holding a depth of emotion that mirrored the raw honesty of the poem, a depth I was only just beginning to fathom. "It is," he agreed, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "And maybe that's what figuring it out together really means, carrying each other's hearts through the chaos." And in that moment, surrounded by the silent wisdom of countless books, in the hushed sanctuary of the library, I knew, with a certainty that settled deep within my soul, that whatever the future held, whatever storms we faced, we were in it together. Fragmented, unconventional, beautifully chaotic, just like the city we loved. And somehow, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. It was the beginning of our New York story.